My name is Adrian Miller. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my brother. And for as long as I can remember, I've asked myself a painful question. Why was I never enough for my parents? From the very beginning, it was clear. My brother Nathan was the star. I was the ghost. I still remember being 10 years old, clutching a certificate in my hand, trembling with excitement. I had just won first place in a statewide mathematics competition. My heart raced all the way home because I thought, no, I truly believed my parents would finally be proud of me. I burst into the living room holding the paper like it was a crown jewel. My mother looked up, glanced at the certificate, and said flatly, "Good job. But it's not that big of a deal. Nathan just got chosen as captain of the basketball team. That's something worth celebrating." That evening, our family had roasted chicken soda and a small party. For Nathan, not for me. My award ended up on my desk collecting dust. That was how it always went. No matter what I achieved, it was invisible. No matter how brightly I tried to shine, their eyes were fixed only on Nathan. They cheered for his smallest victories. They dismissed my greatest efforts. And slowly, year after year, I stopped trying to make them see me. When I was a teenager, the gap only grew wider. My brother's games were a family event, my parents shouting, clapping, living, and breathing his every move. I spent those nights alone in my room, books open, hearing their voices echo from the stadium blocks away. I wanted to scream, "Look at me, I exist too," but I never did. I swallowed the ache and it hardened inside me. I chose a different path. While Nathan drifted towards sports and my parents paid for every tuition, every camp, every trip, I went into technology. I worked jobs on the side, took loans, scraped by. I built myself piece by piece because no one was there to hold me up. And then I met Sophia. Sophia saw me. Not Nathan's brother, not the forgotten son, not the shadow. She saw Adrian. She loved me for who I was, flaws and all. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. When I proposed to her, I dreamed my parents would finally stand with me, even just once. I wrote them an invitation, poured my heart into it, begged them to be there. On my wedding day, I stood at the altar looking at the seats reserved for my family. Empty. My phone buzzed. A text message. "Sorry, Adrian. Nathan has a championship game tonight. You understand, right? We can't miss it." I read it again and again, my hands shaking. My bride Sophia squeezed my palm. She whispered, "It's okay. You have me now." And she was right. But deep down, I felt something inside me snap. What kind of parents skip their son's wedding for a game? We built a life together, Sophia and I. It wasn't easy. We lived in a small apartment, pinching pennies, fighting to make it work. I threw myself into my passion, digital content creation. I worked days, nights, weekends, fueled by caffeine and determination. I wanted to build something of my own, something no one could ignore. Years passed. The company I built began to grow. Slowly at first, tiny contracts, small clients, but I refused to quit. I poured every ounce of myself into it, and eventually it took off. We expanded internationally, and after endless battles, I signed the deal of a lifetime, a buyout worth tens of millions of dollars. I cried the day I signed that contract, not because of the money, but because it was proof that I mattered, proof that I wasn't invisible. Sophia hugged me so tight that I could barely breathe. We cried together, not from exhaustion, but from relief. And then, for the first time in almost a decade, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed across the screen. I froze. After all these years. "Why, now?" I answered. Her voice was the same, yet somehow foreign. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about Sophia. She didn't even say she was sorry for missing my wedding, for all the years of silence. Instead, her first words were, "Adrian, we're so proud of you. We knew you'd make it one day. And listen, Nathan's been struggling. His son's about to start college, but tuition is just impossible. With everything you've achieved, maybe you could help out. Just a few $100,000, it's nothing for you now." I stood there. the phone pressed to my ear, stunned into silence. All these years of neglect, of abandonment, and the first thing they ask of me is money. I couldn't speak. For a long moment I just listened to the silence on the line, my mother breathing, waiting for my answer, as if it was the most natural thing in the world to call me after 10 years and ask for money. Finally, I found my voice. It was low, almost shaking. "Mom, do you even hear yourself right now?" She paused. "What do you mean you've done so well for yourself, Adrian? We're proud. We're finally proud. But Nathan's family needs help. And finally proud." My voice cracked. "When I was a child, I begged for you to notice me. When I won awards, when I worked myself sick just to prove I was worth something, you didn't even clap. You missed my wedding, Mom? My wedding. Because Nathan had a game. And now, after a decade of silence, you call me just to ask for money." Her voice hardened, defensive. "Don't be dramatic. We did what we could for both of you. Nathan just needed more support. You were always independent, Adrian. You didn't need us the same way." I laughed bitterly. "Independent, I needed you. I needed a mother and father who looked at me and saw their son, not a backup, not a shadow. But I never had that. You never gave me that." There was shuffling, and then my father's voice came on the line, gruff, impatient. "Adrian, stop with the self-pity. Nathan is family, blood. His kid is your nephew. If you can throw around money on fancy cars, you can help them. That's what family does." I felt my chest tighten. "Family," I whispered. "Family doesn't abandon their own. Family doesn't skip a son's wedding to cheer at a basketball game. Family doesn't ignore you until you're rich enough to be useful. You only remember I exist when there's something you want." For a moment no one spoke. Then my father snapped, "Enough. Are you going to help or not?" And just like that, something inside me broke. I had carried this ache for decades, carried it like a stone in my chest, hoping one day they would see me, hoping one day they would love me the way I loved them. But that day would never come. They weren't calling because they cared. They were calling because I had money, because I was finally worth exploiting. I hung up. I stood in the middle of the living room phone, slipping from my hand. Sophia rushed over. "What happened?" she asked, eyes wide with concern. I told her everything, every word, every wound reopened. My voice trembled, and before I knew it, tears blurred my vision. All these years I thought maybe it was me. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe if I worked harder, earned more, became something, they'd finally love me. But I see it now. They'll never love me. Not really, not for me. Only for what I can give them. Sophia held me, and for the first time in years, I sobbed. Not the silent kind of crying I'd mastered as a boy, but raw, broken sobs that shook my body. She whispered into my ear, "You don't need their love, Adrian. You never did. You have me. You have us. And you have the power to choose who your family is." Her words stayed with me. That night I sat awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I thought about my childhood, my empty wedding seats, the silence that stretched across a decade. And then I thought about the children out there, children who, like me, were told in 1,000 subtle ways that they didn't matter. Children whose potential was ignored, whose voices went unheard. I had money now, more money than I ever dreamed of. And I realized I could use it to break the cycle, to give those children the chances I never had. So I made a choice. I took $15 million, $15 million that my parents expected to go to Nathan's family, and I donated it to an educational foundation, a fund for scholarships, for resources, for young minds that needed someone to believe in them. The day I signed the check, I felt something shift inside me. Not guilt, not emptiness, but peace. I sent my parents a short message. Just one line: "I won't be your wallet. I won't be your shadow. I'm done." And then I blocked their numbers. It hurt, God, it hurt to cut that final thread. But for the first time, I felt free, free from chasing their approval, free from begging for their love, free to define myself not by what they withheld, but by what I could give to the world. I turned my focus to Sophia, to the life we were building together. And in time we started our own family. When I held my son in my arms for the first time, I swore to him that I would never make him feel invisible, that he would always know he mattered, that my love for him would never depend on his accomplishments, but on the simple fact that he was mine. Sometimes, late at night, the old ache returns. I wonder what it would have been like to have parents who were proud of me, not of my bank account, but of me. But those thoughts fade when I hear my son's laughter, when Sophia squeezes my hand, when I see the faces of the students whose lives are changed because of that donation. I may have lost the family I was born into, but I found a new one built on love, respect, and choice. And in that I discovered something far more powerful than their approval. I discovered myself. There are nights when I lie awake and the past comes rushing back like a flood I can't hold back. I remember sitting at the dinner table as a boy. Nathan would talk about his games, his friends, his plans. My parents leaned in, eyes shining, nodding at every word. When it was my turn, when I tried to share something about a book, I read about the small project I built with scraps of wire and an old radio. I watched their attention drift away. Forks, clinking eyes, glazing over, until finally someone would cut me off. "That's nice, Adrian, but let's not bore everyone." Bore everyone. That's what I was to them. I remember my 12th birthday. Nathan got a bicycle, brand new, red and gleaming. I got a sweater 2 sizes too big, wrapped hastily in plain paper. "You're practical, Adrian," my father said. "You don't need all that flashy stuff." I smiled and said thank you. But later that night I pressed my face into my pillow so no one would hear me cry. I remember the science fair, the one where I built a working model of a wind turbine. My teacher pulled my parents aside and told them I had real talent, that I could do something special one day. My mother smiled politely, but her eyes were already on Nathan, who was tugging at her sleeve, eager to leave for his practice. We drove straight from the fair to the gym. My ribbon dangled from my pocket, ignored. Those memories are heavy. They creep into the present like shadows. But then there are other memories, newer ones, that shine brighter. I remember the day I walked through a community center funded by my donation. The walls were lined with books, computers, bright spaces for kids who had none of these things before. A little boy, maybe 8 years old, tugged at my sleeve. He looked up at me with wide eyes and said, "Are you the one who built this?" I nodded. He grinned. "Then thank you. Now I can do my homework here. I want to be an engineer." His words pierced me, but not in the way my parents' words always had. His words healed. They reminded me that my pain could be transformed into something powerful, into opportunity for someone else. I remember another moment years later holding my newborn son. His tiny fingers curled around mine, fragile but fierce. In that instant, I made a vow that he would never question my love, never wonder if he was invisible. He would never have to earn my pride. It would be his from the moment he breathed his first breath. There are times when Sophia catches me staring at him, my eyes wet. She asks what I'm thinking, and I just shake my head. How do I explain that every laugh, every cry, every milestone of his feels like rewriting my own story, that with every hug, every bedtime story, I am repairing something broken inside me, and yet sometimes the ache still comes back. Sometimes I wonder if I had written one more letter, made one more phone call, begged one more time, would my parents have finally seen me, or was the outcome always inevitable? But then I remember the phone call, my father's impatient voice, my mother's casual entitlement, the way they reduced my existence to dollar signs, and the ache hardens into clarity. They didn't want me, not really. They wanted what I could give. And that's when I remind myself, love isn't about blood. It isn't about titles. Love is a choice. I chose Sophia. I chose my son. I chose the children who study under bright lights in libraries my donations built. I chose the teachers who now have resources to inspire instead of struggling in silence. I chose to pour my love where it could grow. When I look at it that way, maybe I wasn't abandoned after all. Maybe I was redirected away from people who would never love me toward people who would. Sometimes I still drive past the old neighborhood. I park across the street from the house where I grew up. The curtains are different now, the paint chipped the trees taller. But I can still see the boy I once was, sitting on the front steps, waiting for someone to notice him. I close my eyes and whisper to that boy, "You made it. You were always enough." They just couldn't see it. And when I open my eyes, I drive away, not with bitterness, but with something close to peace. If you've listened to my story this far, maybe you've felt echoes of your own. Maybe you too know what it's like to feel invisible in the eyes of the people who should have loved you most. If that's you, I want you to hear me clearly. It isn't your fault. For years, I believed I was the problem. I believed that if I just worked harder, achieved more, became richer, stronger, better, then my parents would finally love me. That belief nearly destroyed me. It pushed me to chase approval I was never going to receive. But the truth I learned is this: some people are simply incapable of giving you the love you deserve. It doesn't mean you are unworthy. It doesn't mean you are broken. It only means that their vision is clouded, their heart's limited. And you have a choice. You can spend your whole life banging on a locked door, or you can turn and walk toward the people who are waiting with open arms. For me, that choice was Sophia. It was my son. It was the countless children I will never meet but whose lives will be brighter because of the opportunities my donation gave them. When I cut ties with my parents, it felt like stepping off a cliff. But what I didn't know was that I wasn't falling, I was finally flying. I used to believe blood was everything. That family was destiny. But now I know family is not defined by DNA. Family is defined by love, by presence, by the ones who show up when it matters. So if you are carrying wounds like mine, if you feel unseen, unwanted, unloved, know this: you are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not invisible. You can choose your family. You can choose where to give your love. You can choose to turn your pain into something powerful. I won't pretend it's easy. Even now there are nights when the ache returns, when I wonder if things could have been different. But then I hear my son's laughter. I see Sophia's smile. I read letters from students who got scholarships through the foundation, and I know I made the right choice. I may have lost the parents I wished for, but I gained the life I was meant to have. So here I am, Adrian Miller, the forgotten son, the overlooked brother, the invisible child, but no longer invisible, no longer forgotten, no longer defined by the love I didn't receive. Today, I am defined by the love I give. And if there is one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: you don't have to be the shadow of someone else's life. You can step into your own light. You can build your own family, and you can choose every single day to be more than what was done to you, because you were always enough, and you always will be.